Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. शुश्रूषोषद्धधानस्य वासुदेव कथारुचिः स्यान्महत्सेवया विप्राः पुण्यतीर्थनिषेवनात्. O twice born sages, by serving those devotees who are completely freed from all vice, great service is done. By such service, one gains affinity for hearing the messages of Vasudeva. Shrunvatam svakatah Krishnah Punyashravana Kirtanah Hridayantasto hyabhadrani Vidunoti suhritsatam. Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Nashta prayeshvabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Tada rajastamo bhavaha kamalobhadayascha ye cheta etair anaviddam sitam sattve prasidati. As soon as irrevocable loving service is established in the heart, the effects of nature's modes of passion and ignorance, such as lust, desire, and hankering, disappear from the heart. Then the devotee is established in goodness and he becomes completely happy. Evam prasanna manaso bhagavad bhakti yogataha Bhagavat Tattva Vijnanam Mukta Sangasya Jayate. Thus, established in the mode of unalloyed goodness, the man whose mind has been enlivened by contact with devotional service to the Lord gains positive scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead in the stage of liberation from all material association. Vidyate hridaya grantish Chidyante sarva samshayah Kshiyante chasya karmani Drishta evatmanishvare. Thus, the knot in the heart is pierced and all misgivings are cut to pieces. The chain of fruitive actions is terminated when one sees the self as master. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare
Yasodanandana Radhanandana Yasodanandana Kiravanatari Jaya Radha Madhava Hari Jaya Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya. Also, this is AC. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ramacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Ram Sagaho, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Sri Sri Radha Krishna, Go Govida, Shama Kunda Radha Kuda, Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Ganga Jamuna Tulsi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai, Go Premanandi, all glories to some of the bodies, all glories to some of the bodies, all glories to some of the bodies. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Guru, all glories to Sri Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasna Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswata Devi Gauravani Pachadane Nirvasesha Shunyavadi Paschatadesha Tarane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 10, Chapter 87, verse 16. Iti tavasura yastriyadya adipate kila lokamala kshapana katamrit abdim avagayata pangsijahu. Kimuta puna swadama vidut asaya kala guna parama bhajantiye paramajasra sukhanubhavam. Iti thus Tava your Suraya, wise saints, tree of the three, Adipate, O Master, Akila of all, Loka, worlds, Mala, contamination, Shapana, eradicates, Kata, discussions, Amrata, nectar, Abdim, into the ocean of Agahya, by diving deeply, Tapamsi, their troubles, Jahu, have given up. Kimuta, what to speak? Puna, moreover, Swa, their own. Dhamma, by the power. Viduta, dispelled. Asaya, of their minds. Kala, and of time. Guna, undesirable qualities. Parama, O Supreme One. Bhajanti, worship. Yea, who, Padam, your true nature. Ajasra, uninterrupted. Sukha, of happiness. Anubhavam, experience. Translation. Therefore, O Master of the three worlds, the wise get rid of all misery by diving deep into the nectarian ocean of topics about you, which washes away all the contamination of the universe. And what to speak of those who, having by spiritual strength rid their minds of bad habits and free themselves from time, are able to worship your true nature, O Supreme One, finding within it uninterrupted bliss. Purport. According to Srila Jiva Goswami in the previous verse, those Srutis whose presentation of the Supreme Truth may seem impersonal clarified their true purpose. Now, in the present verse, those who focus exclusively on the divine personality of Godhead, who speak of his transcendental pastimes, take their turn in praising him. Because all the Vedas declare the supremacy of the personality of Godhead as the cause of all causes, discriminating persons should take to his worship by diving into the ocean of his glories. Intelligent devotees help dispel the distress of all souls and loosen their own burning attachment to materialistic life. These advancing devotees gradually give up all material attachment and lose any interest they had in the troublesome austerities of karma, jnana, and yoga. Beyond these devotees are the Suris, connoisseurs of spiritual truth, who honor the nectarian ocean of the Supreme Lord's glories by immersing themselves fully within it. These mature devotees of the Supreme Lord achieve unimaginable perfection. The Lord, reciprocating their sincere endeavors, empowers them to realize him in his personal form, remembering the rapture, the Lord's intimate pastimes and entourage. with rapture, the Lord's intimate pastimes and entourage, they are automatically freed from the last subtle traces of mental contamination and from sensitivity to the unavoidable pains of disease and old age. Referring to the purifying power of devotional service, the Srutis say, Tadyata pushkara palasa apo na sasyante evam vidi papam karmana sasyate. Just as water does not adhere to a lotus leaf, so sinful activities do not adhere to one who knows the truth in this way. The Sapata Brahmana, Taittiriya Brahmana, Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad, and Bodhayana Dharma Shastra all concur, Nakarmana lipyate papakena. One thus avoids becoming tainted by sinful activity. The Rig Veda refers to the Supreme Lord's pastimes as follows: Vishnor nukam viryani pravocham ya partavani vimame rajangsi. Only he may fully enunciate the heroic deeds of Lord Vishnu, who can count all the particles of dust in the world. Many Shruti mantras glorify devotional service to the Lord, such as Eko Vasi Sarva Ye Anu Bhajati Rastesham Sukham Saswatam Netaresham. He is the one omnipresent Lord and controller. Only those wise souls who worship him obtain eternal happiness, not anyone else. In this connection, Srila Sridhar Swami says, Sakala Veda Generita Sadgunas Tvam Iti Sarva Manishi Janarata Tvai Subhadra Guna Sravanadibis Tava Pada Smaranena Gata Klama. Because all the Vedas describe your transcendental glories, all thoughtful persons are attached to hearing and chanting about your all auspicious qualities. Thus, by remembering your lotus feet, they are freed from material distress. Translation: Therefore, O Master of the three worlds, the wise get rid of all misery by diving deep into the nectarian ocean of topics about you, which washes away all the contamination of the universe. Then what to speak of those who, having by spiritual strength rid their minds of bad habits and free themselves from time, are able to worship your true nature, O Supreme One, finding within it uninterrupted bliss. So, these are the verses of the Srutis, the Upanishads particularly, and the previous verse was actually talking about Brahman in one sense, and the true nature of Brahman, and it started off, I think, with the word Brihat, which means Brihat Upalabdam, so Brihat means big or large, and actually it's the same root as Brahman. So Brahman comes from that same root, that which covers everything or extends everywhere, that which is the biggest, etc. So they began by explaining what Brahman is, and ultimately, of course, they're explaining it's not simply impersonal. So this verse, on the other hand, doesn't really talk about the Brahman as such, but simply starts to glorify the Supreme Lord. So it talks about the ocean of the sweet ocean of topics of the Lord, Kanavarta Abdim. So obviously it's not going to be, cannot never be impersonal Brahman, because no matter, even if we can describe the impersonal Brahman by the Vedas and give it a name, etc., it technically has no qualities. So how you can have sweet ocean of topics about Brahman? So in the it's the Paramata Sandarbha or the Bhagavad Sandarbha there, Jiva Goswami talks about, Sambandha, Abhidheya, and Prayojana. So of course the first Sandarbha is Tattva Sandarbha, which is Pramana. And then what is the Pramana? Bhagavatam. What does Bhagavatam prove? Sambandha, Abhidheya, Prayojana. So what is Sambandha? So in Jiva Goswami, obviously it means the definition of the Jiva, Prakriti, and Supreme Lord. And then Abhidheya refers to Bhakti, and Prayojana refers to Prema. So obviously we have Priti Sandarbha, all about Prema, and we have Bhakti Sandarbha, all about Abhidheya. And then we have three Sandarbhas, the Bhagavat Sandarbha, the Paramata Sandarbha, and the Krishna Sandarbha, which is all Sambandha. So of course we deal with the jiva and material energy and the Supreme Lord as Paramatma and Paramatma Sandarbha. And then we deal with Bhagavan and Bhagavat Sandarbha. And then of all the forms of Bhagavan, we get Krishna. So we have one whole Sandarbha dedicated to Krishna. And pros and cons arguments about why Krishna is supreme or why he's not supreme or whatever. And taking all the different controversial statements and analyzing them. In relation to that, when you're talking about Bhagavan and Paramatma, then he says, well, Brahman is there, but we're not going to have a Sandarbha of Brahman because you can't discuss it. No discussion about Brahman. It's not no qualities, so you can't really glorify it or say anything about it because it's inactive, etc. So in that sense, Brahman is, we can't really glorify it much. Other than say it's nirakar. By negatives we can glorify it, that's all we can do. So this obviously, the Kata Amrita Abdin, the ocean, sweet ocean of topics, or the ocean of sweet topics, cannot refer simply to an impersonal Brahman, so must refer to a supreme transcendental entity who's called Brahman, but actually is not impersonal at all, and who has many attractive qualities, right? And simply those hearing about those qualities is enough to destroy all contamination of all people. Akila loka malak shapana, and destroys all. It's simply like hearing about these topics. You get your contamination or ignorance destroyed, karmas get destroyed, etc. So the devotees of the Lord, that is the Suris, Surayaha, they dive into that ocean. They submerge themselves in the ocean. Avagahya means that they put their head under the water. So they more or less drown in the ocean, so to speak, of the topics of the Lord. They get fully immersed in the topics of the Lord because it's so sweet. And instead of drowning, they get saved. So it says they give up all suffering. Tapam sujahu, all suffering is finished because they get immersed in the topics of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, there is some experience in hearing about the Supreme Lord, simply about it, hearing about him, not even seeing him, but just hearing about him, which is very special. So the qualities of the Lord, and so the hearing about the activities of the Lord, or hearing about the form of the Lord, has very, very special power to produce bliss in the jiva. Then it talks about here the persons who actually have destroyed all of the bad qualities of material nature and are fixed in the Supreme Lord. Then they worship that Supreme Lord. And there they find complete bliss. Ajasa Sukha Anubhavam. So they worship the Lord who is full of continual bliss. So this verse is about Ananda, how the jiva can experience bliss. So Upanishads, when they speak about Brahman, they also speak about bliss. So they promise that by realizing Brahman and getting mukti, you become blissful, you're amrita, you're full of nectar, you're deathless, etc. So they promise many things. But then they describe that Brahman, and they'll describe it often negatively. That is nirguna, nirvishesha, nishkriya, etc. No activities, no qualities, no form, like that. They speak of negatively. So this is taken as, by some, like Shankaracharya, as the negatives are there to show that we cannot really describe the Brahman. So therefore we speak in negatives about it, because it doesn't have any qualities or anything to speak about. So we just negate everything, that's all. It's not, this is not, this is not, this is not, this is not this. And then we're left with Brahman. So this is something like Buddhism, of course, because Buddhism negates everything also. But then Buddhism says ultimately, then there is nothing. So Shankara says, no, there is Brahman, but it's not this, it's not this, it's not this. It's a little bit different. Brahman is a something, and Buddhism is a nothing there. And in either case, it's not describable by words. So often negatives are used, but then positives are also used. So it talks about Ananda. Brahman is Ananda. Brahman is Vijnanam or Pragyanam or whatever like that, which is, okay, it's knowledge, it's wisdom, it's perception, it's whatever like that. So it's a little bit problematic, because then we'll say, well, that means that Brahman is blissful, Brahman is intelligent, etc., etc. And then that means he's got qualities. So that's a little bit of a problem. So then they go to grammatical explanations and say it's not a quality, it's simply another descriptive term. Let's say it's just naming Brahman. Brahman is Brahman. Ananda equals Brahman. Pragyanam equals Brahman. So Brahman is Brahman. That's all. It's another name of Brahman. That's not a descriptive quality at all. So the Supreme is the Supreme is the Supreme is the Supreme. And we can use all sorts of words, but ultimately the Brahman is Brahman. That's all it means. So again, no qualities. We can't really describe it by any thing like that. So anyway, that's if we have such an entity, then and of course then the other problem is that when the jiva realizes Brahman, the only way he realizes by becoming it, because the jiva doesn't exist. So the jiva realizes he is Brahman, or he can't even realize it because he is Brahman. You can't realize something else because there is nothing else there. So you just become Brahman, and you're conscious as Brahman of nothing. Like that. So that's the final realization. So can we call that bliss? No, not really. We can say it's the absence of karma, it's the absence of ignorance, it's the absence of material bodies, the absence of birth and death. So it is true that when the Upanishads describe Amrita, it's beyond death. That is true. Liberation is beyond death, it's beyond karma. In that sense, okay. But is it blissful? Or is it bliss? No, it is simply the absence of all the problems we have in the material world. That's all it is. So this is what our acharyas often say. All we can do is describe Brahman as absence of the material world. And that is true, that's what it is. And for some people it may be bliss. As to some people are happy simply to get rid of their elementary problems in this world. They're not really blissful, but let's get rid of their problems, and then they're happy with that. On the other hand, the scriptures also present the idea that you can become blissful. The jiva can become blissful in realizing the Supreme Lord. So therefore, in the last section of the Brahma Sutras, then in other words, Brahma Sutras is divided into 4 chapters. So 2 we can say are Sambandha, 1 chapter, the 3rd chapter, Abhidheya, Bhakti, and the 4th chapter, Prayojana, Prema, like that. So in that 4th part, then it describes the jiva in his liberated state when he realizes Supreme Lord. And we say, wow, how Upanishads will never describe that. But then there are, even in Chandogya Upanishad, etc., it describes the jiva in a liberated state, and he's laughing, and he's playing somewhere. He's talking, he's doing activities, etc. With no birth, no death, no hunger, no old age, etc. Beyond karma, and all his desires automatically fulfilled. He's completely satisfied. So it describes the jiva in a liberated state. And he's doing things. He's experiencing things. So this is the description of the bliss of the jiva. So why is the jiva blissful? So that's because he's established a relationship with that Supreme Brahman, the Supreme Lord. So one attains the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Brahman. You attain the Supreme Brahman, and then you become blissful. So in other words, you not become the Brahman, but you become like Brahman, in the sense that you're free of old age, death, etc., no more material bodies, etc., spiritual body. And in realizing the Lord, then one gets bliss and a relationship with the Lord. Therefore, there is a higher experience for the jiva other than simply realizing or becoming Brahman and escaping from the material world. However, it takes a big leap of faith to get to that position. The jivas in the material world are stuck in their material bodies and in material concepts, and it's very difficult to get out of that, even for the greatest people, philosophers and others. They try, and they succeed a little bit, but to the extent that they get out is actually they get up to jnana. And they start realizing they're not the body, there's something else. And that's as far as they can get by their intellect. But they can realize that and maybe experience it a little bit. They were actually not the material body, and there was something beyond the body which is eternal. And they can get some satisfaction from that also, because they realize something beyond the material experience. So that's as far as the people in the material world can go. So that is why we have a whole section of the Upanishads which emphasize this, the jnana yoga and the Brahman impersonal Brahman aspect. Because it is accessible to some people and they appreciate that. People, especially in Sattva Gun, they can appreciate this type of existence, very peaceful existence. And therefore we have Upanishads like the previous verse speaking about the Brahman, etc. But though Upanishads do that, we'll see the same Upanishad that speaks in that way about Brahman as the ultimate, then they also attribute that Brahman with qualities, again, with personality. So we cannot say that even the 10 Upanishads that Shankaracharya has selected to show only Brahman exists and everything else is Maya, they actually don't show that. They show both faces. So there's no Upanishads, major Upanishad that's completely impersonal. They have both aspects, personal and impersonal. So that is why the Bhagavatam itself says that there's Brahman, Parama, and Bhagavan. They're all one entity. They're faces of the same Lord. But we get some Upanishads that may emphasize Brahman at one time and then Parama at another time, Bhagavan at another time. So in this way, the Upanishads present all three aspects of the Supreme Lord. So, therefore, we cannot condemn the Upanishads as being impersonal or whatever. There's showing one aspect of the Supreme Lord for persons who are qualified for jnana, and at least they're above material enjoyment. So that's why we have such Upanishads speaking. So those who are more qualified, then they will accept the Supreme Lord. But as I said, it's a little rare because you can't do it by intellect. So the only way you can get to this stage is by mercy. Mercy of Bhagavan manifests the mercy of devotees. Through that you get Sukriti, through Sukriti you get faith, through faith then you accept that Supreme Lord who is the ocean of all transcendental qualities and ocean of bliss, etc. So when you hear topics about him, you become blissful. The only way we get to that stage of accepting the Lord in that form is through mercy of devotees. So once that happens, then you can have such descriptions here. So here the Srutis are describing that Supreme Lord who's full of all wonderful qualities, and immediately on hearing it, the devotees become immersed in bliss. And immediately they're beyond the material world. So by Shravanam they transcend the material world. But they do not enter into mere liberation. No. They have blissful experience in a relationship with the Lord. So they never extinguish their realization of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord is the source of their bliss. So when they enter a liberated state, they do not give up that Lord at all. They continue to worship him and hear about him, etc. Therefore, here is a glorification, a direct glorification of Supreme Lord, completely opposite of the Brahman, impersonal Brahman realization. So by this we understand that the Upanishads are not actually saying that Brahman is the highest. So the impersonalists or the Mayavadis will say, yes, there are descriptions of the personal aspect of the Supreme Lord. That's a lower description, and Brahman is higher. So we of course say Brahman, Paramatma is superior, Bhagavan is supreme. They'll say the opposite. Bhagavan's at the bottom, Paramatma a little better. Brahman is the highest. But even then, they'll say Brahman is the absolute highest. Paramatma and Bhagavan are material. But they're the highest part of the material world. Sattva gun at its purest. In this way they put Bhagavan down. So therefore they say the descriptions of Bhagavan are there, Supreme Lord, Paramatma are there in the Upanishads. That's describing that lower aspect, Saguna Brahman. The higher aspect is the Nirguna Brahman. So that's their interpretation of all those sections of the Upanishads, or even of the whole Bhagavad Gita. It's all about Saguna Brahman, Saguna Brahman, Krishna speaking. And it's material ultimately. So in any case, both aspects are there in the works. But if we analyze intelligently, we'll see that the Bhagavan realization gives rise to the highest bliss. So therefore we put that in a superior position. So that is expressed here in this particular verse, where we obviously have a Lord who has wonderful qualities which immediately give bliss to the devotees. So that's quite contrary to the realization of oneness in Brahman and to the nature of Brahman itself. So here, in answer to that question, how can the Vedas express the Supreme Lord? Obviously, they're saying here, well, it's not that Brahman is without qualities at all. I mean, it has qualities. They're full of sweetness. But obviously, they're spiritual qualities, not material qualities. So, yes, Brahman is nirguna in the sense that no material qualities, but he has spiritual qualities, and they're very, very sweet. And they can be expressed here because the people who hear about them become liberated by it. So they cannot be material sound. It has to be spiritual sound, not material sound to do that.
Can we understand that people who follow Brahman, they're better than the atheist?
Huh?
They're better than the atheist, at least.
Yeah, in one sense, because at least they believe in a supreme. So that's why we also consider the Buddhists are atheists, technically, because they don't believe in a supreme at all. So therefore, Mayavad is superior to that. But then we also say it is covered Buddhism, because like Buddhism, Shankaracharya says, everything is illusion. The whole material world is illusion. So that's what the Buddhists say. The only difference is that he accepts Brahman as real and they accept nothing as real. That's all. So it's basically theistic. And they become astika in the sense they accept the Vedas, whereas the Buddhists reject the Vedas.
For any reason the Mayavadis are not able to go above the Brahman level? Because they can't accept the form of the Lord.
Mercy.
Only mercy.
Mercy of devotees. Well, we see that Sukadev, he was Atmarama. He was impersonal. He became a devotee by mercy of Vedavyas and other devotees and Supreme Lord himself. So it is possible, but it may be difficult if they're stuck, and because they commit aparads, then they become stuck in that position. So more difficult in many cases.
I mean, Mayavadis existed even before Shankaracharya's advent.
Yeah.
There's an online...
every day of Brahma we have Buddha coming, and it's completely nihilistic philosophy, so all these philosophies are there. We get all extremes. We get nothing exists. We get something exists. One thing exists. Many things exist. No God. Everybody's God. God is there with no form. God is there with form. We get all grades of belief in the human beings, all varieties of philosophies. If you could, start analyzing the different varieties, so many different varieties of philosophies are there. And many of them are represented within India itself. We can see many varieties of that, and many in other countries, and many religions also.
We read Prabhupada's books and morning walk conversation. Prabhupada is quite heavy with the Mayavadis, like devotees should not hear the lectures.
Well, we see that comes from Chaitanya Charitamrita and the conduct of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It says contaminating, that you get stuck into that intellectual mode, especially for people who are very intellectual. They'll get caught up into all those intellectual arguments, and they get persuaded by those arguments. So therefore, that's why I said you avoid it as much as possible. Because ultimately it is aparad, because it doesn't accept the form of the Supreme Lord. So therefore, if you get absorbed in that, then you commit aparad against the Supreme Lord, and then bhakti gets finished.
An online question. We see in South India, a lot of Brahmanas, Vedic chanters, they chant the Shruti mantras very perfectly without even saying the paper in memory. So we find, normal people find tough to chant. And is it that because they are able to protect the Vedic mantras right from beginning, parampara to parampara?
So what's the question?
The question is a comment. We find difficult to chant even 16 words. The Brahmanas till date have protected the Vedas, vast and not a human task, protected since creation. That is comment.
It's just a
You
comment.
made a comment. How are they able to chant without memory?
Yeah, if they go to a gurukul and they're taught properly, then they have to memorize at least one Veda, inside out, upside down, backwards, forwards, everything. They have special exercises so they can, where they alternate the words back and forwards like this. There are all sorts of tricks they play now, and so that they know every single syllable and where it's placed, plus the swara of it, plus the rishi who deliver the mantra, the chandas and everything, and they have to chant it all according to the proper swara. So that is what Veda is, and it requires a high qualification. So that's why it says only, twice born can study, and particularly the Brahmanas. They're the ones that study the Vedas and learn the Vedas. So if one can do that, it's a very high qualification, and it's absolute, so it's non-different from the Supreme Lord. It's an expansion from Om, and Om is Vishnu. So then, very good. So of course, not just reciting, if they should know the meaning of it, then they can chant it with devotion. And then it has true potency because they understand it represents Vishnu, Supreme Lord. Then it's very, very potent. But who can hear it and appreciate it again? If you're a Sudra, you shouldn't hear the Vedas. You have to be upper caste just to hear the Vedas again. So just to get access to that sound, then you have to have some qualification in the gunas. You can't be tamagun, you got to be at least rajagun and a little bit of sattva maybe, and then you can appreciate the sound. But then higher than that, of course, you should appreciate the meaning also. And in the purport of it, that's samanda gyan or whatever out of that. So very few people probably when they're hearing would know that, get that benefit also. So therefore a little bit difficult for most people to access. Whereas we find just chanting the name of Narayan accidentally destroys all your karmas and whatever like that. So it seems to be more accessible to people without svaras, without qualification. They just hear or chant the name and they get such great effect. So Vedas are absolute, so they're very, very powerful, but it requires qualification to chant, requires qualification to hear to get the proper effect.
There's a version saying that women should not chant the Vedic mantras, Gayatri. Is it true?
Yeah, they don't get Upanayanam, they don't get the Brahma Gayatri, so they're not qualified to study the Vedas.
So what do women in ISKCON, when they get the Brahman, they chant the Gayatri mantra?
That's some exception. Of course, generally we're not hearing the Vedas anyway. They may chant the mantra. That's something that came into ISKCON, but even Gaudiya Math doesn't do that. So.
Namo Brahmane Devaya.
Of course, what effect it has for us is disputable because we're not even chanting it with svaras or anything. So it's more or less symbolic, that's all.
The verse Namo Brahmane Devaya, what is the meaning? Is it the God of the Brahmanas or God for whom Brahmanas are Devas? Namo Brahmane Devaya verse, the meaning is whether it is a God of Brahmanas or God for whom?
What are the Brahmanas?
No, Brahmanya Devaya.
Yeah, what is it though?
He's asking which is the right meaning. Is it God of Brahmanas?
Goal?
God. God for Brahmanas. The Lord is a Lord for the Brahmanas, or Brahmanas, or for a God for whom Brahmanas are Devas. Brahmanya Devaya. Translation.
God for whom?
For Devas.
Huh?
God for whom Brahmanas are Devas.
Oh. Well, you could take it any way. According to Sanskrit, you can take it in many different ways. Ultimately, of course, we can say that the Lord, of course, is respectable to the Brahmanas, and Brahmanas are respectable to the Lord, etc. But of course, and then the Lord is affectionate to the Brahmanas. He's affectionate to the cows, etc. So these are common expressions we'll find in the Vedic literature, and we see that also in Bhagavatam itself, where the Lord praises the Brahmana, like in the story of Jai and Vijay there with the Kumaras, etc., and other places as well. He gives deference to the Brahmanas. The Lord has affection for the Brahmanas because they're the highest caste in the material world. But then usually our acharyas say, well, the Brahmana Vaishnava is the essence of the Brahmana. So, of course, if we can say justify that by saying that originally, of course, since the Vedas ultimately project Vishnu as supreme, and if you're a Brahmana, you should know the conclusion of the Vedas, then all Brahmanas should be Vaishnavas. That would be the conclusion. And that the Gayatri Mantra is equal to Om, and Om is equal to Vishnu, and Gayatri Mantra represents Vishnu, so everybody that takes Upanayana should be a worshipper of Vishnu. So the true meaning of Gayatri is Vishnu, and ultimately that by worshipping Vishnu you get prema. That would be the real essence of being a Brahmana. But then, of course, according to tradition and time and whatever, we get all sorts of interpretations of the Gayatri Mantra as being Surya or Devata or Shiva or whatever. And then we also get all sorts of material goals, that the Sandhyavanana becomes a punya for going to Svarga Loka, etc. So, Artha Dharma Kama gets emphasized in all of this. So it gets mixed with karma or karma kanda, etc., and then the ideas get a little bit mixed up. So then we say the essence of the Brahmana, Varna, and the whole system of learning, etc., of the Vedas becomes a little bit diluted or mixed in many ways. But we say purely then again it's ultimately for Supreme Lord. So the true Brahmana would be a Vaishnava, so therefore he's the most worshipable, just like any devotees worthy of worship.
You find the Kshatriyas and Vaishyas, they also have this Upanayam ceremony where they thread.
Yeah.